Hello, everyone, and a very, very warm welcome to this afternoon's program. I know it's long awaited, and our apologies that the first time we tried, we didn't succeed, but it was beyond our control. It was Zoom issues. But we're very happy to be back with this interesting topic this afternoon, stepping off the emotional roller coaster. So we might be in different time zones, but here in South Africa, it's good afternoon. And we're looking forward to getting some insights and some tools for this very important topic. Before I go any further, I'd just like to introduce the Brahmakumaris briefly. Some of you may be new to our organization. So just to let you know that we are an international spiritual organization. We offer a variety of different courses and seminars, many different activities, all to assist the individual with their own spiritual development and the development of their innate qualities and values. You can find out a lot about the organization if you go to our website, which I'll ask Sister Pratibha to put up on the chat so that you can get more details. As I mentioned, we're international and we have branches in over 130 countries. So you will find lots of interesting things there on the website. So our topic, stepping off the emotional roller coaster. I think that this topic is more relevant to us today than ever before. I'm sure that most of us experience some inner turmoil with our emotions. We face a lot of challenges, and the stress triggers these very strong emotions within us. Very often we don't want to experience the emotions, but we seem to feel helpless, that the emotions are stronger than our personal resolve. And so we are very happy that we're going to get some deep insights that will help us to really understand where the emotions are coming from. And when we understand that, it is much easier for us to make the right choices. Now, it's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker this afternoon, Yogesh Sharda. Yogesh was actually born in Africa, in Malawi. And so he's a child of Africa, but he was raised in the UK, and he began his spiritual journey in Oxford over 30 years ago. So he has a wealth of experience, personal experience on his spiritual journey. And he's a dear friend to us. He was in South Africa not so long ago, and we're so happy for him to join us this afternoon. At a professional level, Yogesh is a personal development trainer and facilitator of workshops. He has worked in top companies in many different countries around the world. So he's a very experienced facilitator. And as I said, he has a wealth of his own personal journey of managing himself. And so not just the development of others, but his own development. Yogesh, it's really lovely to have you with us this afternoon. A very warm welcome to you from us all. And the Zoom world is just so wonderful. It connects us as if we are in the same room. And so thank you for giving your time this afternoon. And I hand over to you. Thank you.
Hello again, good afternoon, everyone, and a big thanks to Belinda for such a warm, beautiful, and generous introduction. I hope to live up to everything you've said. And yes, I have very warm memories of being in South Africa just a couple of years ago, and I'm very pleased to be amongst my friends, my colleagues, my sisters and brothers from there once again. And as Belinda mentioned, I've been in this journey of spirituality, self-awareness, since I was a kid. So pretty much all of my life. And one of the things which happens when one lives a life in which you are observing and trying to understand the self is you realize that pretty much everyone goes through some very similar processes internally. And as you observe the mind, you also understand how it works. And it's very entertaining to observe the behavior of one's own mind. What I'll be sharing for the next hour or so will be partly from my own experiences and discoveries along the spiritual journey, and also some wonderful things I've learned and heard from amazing people, friends, colleagues, and teachers whom I've had the great fortune of meeting all these years. Now, when we say getting off the emotional roller coaster, the thought did come to my mind that some people actually like roller coasters. And when you go to a fun fair or an amusement park, people actually pay money for the thrill of being thrown up and down on a roller coaster. But quite often when they get off that roller coaster, they say, never again, never again. But yet the thrill of the ride is something that they look forward to, at least initially. So I am presuming that all of us here together on our call today, we prefer to be off that roller coaster, the roller coaster of emotions. And I believe this is all connected with the mind and how you use the mind. Now, take, for example, a sports psychologist. So she or he will tell an athlete that to win or to lose a game, a sports game, it's all about the mind. Sports is ultimately a mind game. Also, I believe that business is a mind game. Politics is a mind game. And eventually, life is the ultimate mind game. And if I learn what the mind is, how it works, how to look after it, then it's game over, in the sense that the ups and downs of life begin to peter out. Now, just as any machine you buy needs to be looked after, so too does the mind. Whenever you buy a machine, whether it's a new phone or it's a car or it's a fridge, but along with that machine, you also receive a user manual. And that user manual tells you how to maintain the machine, but also then how to use it correctly. And so the question arises, well, where is the user manual for the mind? How to take care of the mind? What sort of thoughts are healthy first thing in the morning? How to handle the mind as we go through the day, how to put the mind to sleep at the end of the day. How much thinking is enough about a particular situation? What sort of attitude is healthy when dealing with criticism or with failure? And all of these things are what I believe should be part of our natural education as we grow up. But it's generally seen that most people pay more attention to their outer life, which means family, study, career, travel, and so on, and relatively less attention to the inner world. And so, to some degree, we grow up emotionally illiterate and develop some bad habits with regard to the way we use our minds. And it's my firm belief that the worst habit of the human race is the habit of overthinking. And why? Because when we overthink, we are throwing away this precious, precious fuel of thought power. And as a result of that, the mind becomes tired. When the mind is tired, the patience level goes down, tolerance level goes down. We make a small issue into a huge issue. We misunderstand ourselves, other people, and situations. So all of this is actually good news in the sense that if I wish my life to improve, if I want to have more peace of mind, more happiness, more stability, it does not depend upon other people or circumstances, but it is entirely within my own hands. And I just have to learn how to use the mind better in order to be able to reclaim my own happiness and peace of mind. So to help me explain some of these ideas today, I've got a few visuals to show you, which I hope will make it more interesting and easier to remember. So let's just start off with the first one here, and I think you can see that it's quite clear. It just talks about the three kinds of intelligence that I believe we need in daily life, in modern times especially. The one that we're most used to hearing about is, of course, this one here, IQ, which is our to do with rational intelligence, reason, logic, analysis. And for simplicity's sake, I've said you require EQ, you require IQ when you're dealing with things. So handling the things of life. And basically, these are the things outside of you, events, circumstances, and so on. But then the next one here is EQ, and that's kind of connected with what we're discussing today. An EQ, which stands for emotional intelligence, emotional quotient, is what you require when you're dealing with other people. And of course, people can be very complicated. So learning how to deal with different personalities, to work with or to live with somebody whose personality is perhaps quite the opposite of yours, that takes certain skills in order not to be on that emotional roller coaster. Now, what I find in this regard, in terms of how we deal with people and with situations, is there are three main categories of people. And I remember when I first started working, I used to work in central London, in a place called Oxford Street, and perhaps some of you have been there. But I remember going into work in a big office, and of course you say to your colleagues first thing in the morning, hello, good morning, how are you? And most would look up from their newspapers or their computer and just say, I'm surviving. And it kind of became a cliche term just to say surviving. But the thought would come to my mind that just to survive and get through the day or get through life, is that it? I mean, is that good enough? To survive is what maybe a plant would do or a tree would do. But we're human beings, and especially if we have our basic needs met, we can improve our experience of life. We have consciousness, we have perspective, we're able to see things differently. And so the next category up is those who I would call as in the existing mode. And so when you're existing, then you go through the emotions of day-to-day life, and you pass through all the different scenes and scenarios where sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes you're criticized, sometimes you're praised, sometimes you may be the center of attention, other times you may be completely ignored. You pass through all of those experiences, but in the existing mode, the way you feel is dependent on all those things which are outside of you. And so if something happens according to your wish, you feel high. If something doesn't go as you wish, you crash and you feel low. If you're praised, you're on cloud 9. If you're criticized, you feel upset. So all these ups and downs, which we could call as the emotional roller coaster, are within this existing mode, approaching life from the existing mode. And another metaphor is it's like being in an emotional pinball machine. Remember those pinball machines from the old days where you're bouncing off what somebody said, what happened, and how it should have happened, and all the things outside of you. And of course, being in that kind of machine or that roller coaster leaves you feeling rather exhausted. But then the highest group, and I feel that's the group that we are interested to be in, is of those who actually live. Now, what does it mean to live? It means to go through all the experiences of life, and yes, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, criticism, praise, attention, being ignored, all those things happen. But when you are in the living mode, then it's as though you have made a choice, a decision, that my peace of mind and my happiness belongs to me, non-negotiable. And so you don't allow what's happening on the outside to infiltrate and pollute your peace and happiness on the inside. And it's rather like that old saying that a boat may go on the water, but the water should not enter into the boat. And today we live in a world where there is a lot of competition. People may have hidden agendas. Things may happen not according to your wish. These are the waves of life that we have to pass over, but not allow that to take away my peace and my happiness. And so what's the difference between the existing mode and the living mode? There's two main things, I believe. One is that one who wishes to be in the mode of living learns to respect the mind and conserve the energy of the mind. And that's when meditation is very, very useful. But secondly, it's also a question of how you choose to see events. Either I can see events and situations as dictating the way I feel, or I can choose to see events as something to make me stronger, something to make me more mature. And I believe this is one of the important factors in a spiritual life, is the realization I cannot control people, situations, and events. I may not be able to control what life brings in front of me, but I can control how I choose to see it. I can control how I wish to receive it. If my mind is consumed by what I don't like, especially about other people, then it will generate negative emotions. There may be anger, there may be anxiety, there may be fear, and so on. But rather, if I shift my focus from being consumed by what I don't like to how I wish to respond, what is the type of response that I want to have, then my whole focus is different. I begin to pay attention to upgrading my response to life rather than why is life giving this to me. We're going to look at that, the choice of response in a moment as well. Just to finish this off, so the third intelligence here, SQ, which is sometimes considered to be a combination of the other two, is called our spiritual intelligence. And just to put it in short, that's all about how you deal with yourself, your relationship with yourself. And it's not really our topic today, but in essence, it's all about your sense of identity and your sense of purpose in your life. Two huge topics to explore, which I believe are essential for every person, especially so in these times that we are currently passing through. And so let's look at the first little skill to develop in order to be able to calm our emotions down and just return to a state of peace. Let's do this first before we go deeper. It's a simple creative visualization, and a very simple one which I use a lot, and especially for beginners, it's easy to do. I'm going to guide you through a simple relaxation exercise, which just takes 3 or 4 minutes. So what I'd suggest is, if you are on a chair, try and have your back straight and try to have your feet flat on the floor. If you're holding something, feel free to put it down for now. Just have your head at a very natural and comfortable angle. And some people like to close their eyes, and if you do that, then of course one needs to be attentive, not to drift off to sleep. Or some just have their eyes are half open. And so I'll just guide you through this simple exercise, and let's see how this goes. So let's just spend a few moments to relax the body and also to relax the mind. So for these next few minutes, I choose to be with myself. So bring your attention in towards yourself. Bring your attention up towards your face. And now bring your attention to the center of your forehead. And here at the center of the forehead, picture a small room. This small room in the center of your forehead is your quiet room of peace. Visualize this very pleasant, quiet room of peace. And this is your private and personal space. And when you are inside your quiet room, you feel very relaxed. This is the place where you can be yourself. Inside your quiet room, you are free from the pressures and demands of the outside world. You can let go of your daily roles and responsibilities. You can drop the masks that you wear in daily life. Feel the peace and the wonderful silence of your quiet room. And just allow your mind to absorb this atmosphere, this energy of serenity, tranquility. And as you do so, thoughts begin to slow down. Mind becomes quiet, calm, relaxed, peaceful, and free. Just be with this feeling of peace in your mind for 1 minute. Okay. So hoping that you feel more relaxed. And if this is something new for you, then I would suggest you try to do this at least once or twice a day, every day, because the mind needs it, the mind deserves it. And especially in big cities, life is fairly disrespectful to the mind. In addition, of course, wherever you are, big city, small city, our toys of technology, our phones and so on are always making demands on the mind. The mind deserves to just step back, just to withdraw from doing, come back to being for a moment, recharge, refresh the inner battery. And we call that as making your mind into your best friend. So this is one part of being able to step off that roller coaster, is build silence moments into your day-to-day life. Visit the quiet room regularly and recharge the mind. The more settled the mind is, the more strong the mind is due to being recharged, the less influenced we are by situations and people, and hence we are able to manage our emotional landscape. So that's the first thing. And the second thing to look at is our vision of life, choosing how we wish to see situations and events. And for this, I'd like to talk a little bit about and also show you another little visual, all to do with desires. When we chase after the desires that the mind produces, then it's a bit like chasing after your shadow. And of course, the more you run after your own shadow, the more it runs away from you, and you end up exhausted. You can never catch your shadow. The thing to do is to stop chasing the shadow, turn around, and walk in the opposite direction, and your shadow begins to follow you. So let's have a look at the inside story of desires and how they work. What are the two kinds of desires that we have? So here's another visual with some writing on there. If you can't read it, I will read it out to you. So basically it tells us, the first one here, the sentence, I don't get what I want. And the result is I feel disappointed. Scenario 2, I get what I don't want, or who I don't want. And the result is stress. So what we wish to happen here is for C to change. C is the emotion we experience. So we prefer not to feel disappointed, sad, upset, angry, stressed. We want to change C. But in order to change C, what should we work on? Should we work on A, which is the getting or the not getting part? Or should we work on B, which is the wanting or the not wanting part? Now, generally, in the world, the way we live, is our whole focus is upon the getting part. Let me try and get what I want, and when I get what I want, then I'll be happy. So all the focus goes upon getting, acquiring, consuming, keeping, protecting, and so on. But it's an endless chase, because then the mind will want something else and something else. The spiritual approach to life tells us, don't focus on the getting part, but let's have a look at this wanting business. What is going on when I want something? What is this wanting all about? And what is behind all this wanting? And so then we begin to explore the area of desires and the wild goose chase that temporary desires take us upon. There's two kinds of desires. One is temporary, the other kind we'll look at in a moment. So here is what may happen when we are chasing after temporary desires. So let's say, for example, I want something. I have a temporary desire for something, but somebody stops me from getting what I desire. Now, because that desire has been created, there is an energy in the mind. And that energy of the desire will change into anger. That I didn't get what I wanted, or you stopped me from getting what I want. And this may be most easily visible in a child, because children, it's very easy to see the emotional process in children. It's also true to say sometimes adults behave like a child. And so I don't get what I want, and therefore anger is generated. When that anger is focused on an individual, it can become hatred. Let's have another scenario over here. I want something, I can't have it, but there is no one to blame. For example, I want to go somewhere, but the weather is not good, the roads are blocked, I'm just unable to go. So the energy of that desire will change into disappointment or perhaps frustration. When I keep thinking about things which did not work out for me, I may drive myself into a depression or feeling I am unfortunate. Life doesn't like me. Why me? And so this kind of negative thinking can drive a person into a depression, which leads to further irrational thinking. Third scenario over here. I want something, I have a desire, but somebody else gets what I desire. That, of course, leads to jealousy. And jealousy is a very, very dangerous emotion, which can lead to a lot of, let's say, a lot of not very nice behaviors. So that's why I've just put these dots here to say all kinds of things emerge when a person's mind is gripped by jealousy. Now, to some degree, we all experience a little bit of these. Some may be more, some may be less. But what we're interested in here is what is the root of all of these different emotions and other emotions too. They're all coming from these temporary desires. As long as the mind is chasing after these temporary desires, there can never be emotional stability. If a temporary desire is fulfilled, momentarily one feels satisfied. But what's actually happening is the fire of desires is simply being fanned and is going to grow higher and higher. Another desire will come, and another one, and it's unending. Hence, this is the futile pursuit of temporary desire. But yet, what to do about it? Well, one of the things that we learn in our study here, in Raja Yoga meditation, is that there is another kind of desire that the soul has. And that's called an eternal desire. So let's have a look at these now. So on one side, we have these temporary desires. The other side, we have these eternal desires. So the temporary desires, I've put them into these categories. There are desires, the obvious ones for possessions or for property, acquiring goods and so on. The desire for some kind of position or status. And then there are others which are more subtle and very niggly. Means they hide within the mind and we don't even realize we have them. These very subtle ones. For example, I may have the desire to be appreciated or at least to be acknowledged. So let's say, for example, I work very hard, I do a lot for other people, and I feel I'm not being appreciated. And so this may cause my emotions to erupt. I feel bitter, I feel angry, I feel resentful, I feel vengeful in some way. So on the one hand, I was doing something good, I was being useful, and I was helping. But I didn't realize that there was also this desire to be appreciated. And it can even be a hidden desire. In my experience, you only realize you have a hidden desire when it is not met. When the expectation is not met, then you realize I had some hidden expectations here. And the result of that is, of course, you feel disappointed, you feel a bit low, or as a yogi friend of mine says, expectations are an invitation to irritation. So when you do feel irritated because of someone, there's nothing to do with that person actually. Just my expectation of that person is not being met. That's the cause of my irritation. So just looking at the others, the desire for attention, and sometimes you see that quite obviously in a person's attention-seeking behavior, the desire to be accepted by a person or by a certain group, desire for approval. And this can be a big one, and sometimes a person may be driven in life just to get the approval of one individual. Everything they do is to try and get somebody's approval. So I'm looking for something from someone. And this reminds me of another phrase which seems quite harsh, but I think it's true. That is that if you want something from someone, then prepare to suffer. In a sense, if you're looking for appreciation or attention or approval from some person, you may get it and you'll be happy for a while. Or you may not get it and then you'll feel lost or upset. There is a cure, of course, and we're coming to that. And furthermore, we have here the desire to be admired, the desire to be validated, so on and so forth. So what to do? One may say, well, aren't we supposed to be like this? Aren't we social beings? Isn't that what life is about? Oh, yes and no. That today it seems to be the norm. That's how everyone behaves. But in fact, when we are spiritually full, when we work on our spirituality, then the mind behaves very differently. We're going to look at that now, plus some good news before we look at that this journey towards being spiritually full, spiritually secure, it is a return journey. One of the founding principles of the spiritual journey, certainly in our study, is that real human nature is actually very pure, very beautiful, very good, very divine. But over time, we have drifted away from that. And the spiritual journey is the return journey back to wholeness, back to wellness, back to fullness. And since it's a return journey, it's possible for every person to do. How do you do that? Well, here are the eternal desires of the soul. Peace, love, joy, self-respect, contentment, and so on. And in fact, the more I the more I go for the eternal desires, the more full and secure I will feel internally. And quite naturally, the temporary desires will reduce. The temporary desires are like our wants. The eternal desires are our needs. And behind every temporary desire, there is an eternal desire. So if we go back to the example of a person looking for appreciation or for acknowledgement, the words coming from that person's mouth are, I don't feel appreciated around here, so I'm not going to do any more. That's it. I had enough. Nobody appreciates me, so I quit. But what the person is actually saying is I don't feel loved. I need some love, please. Give me some love. So behind that temporary desire, the soul actually needs to experience and to feel love. And what I have understood in my own observations of myself and others is pretty much everything we do in life is an attempt to experience peace or joy or love or respect or contentment. This is behind everything. Now, there is further good news. That is that all of these, is peace, love, joy, and a few more, all of these already exist within every person, within every soul. But they are there in seed form. Now, those seeds need to be watered to enable them to germinate. And the name of the process of watering those seeds, that's called Raja Yoga meditation. What is meditation? Nothing but sequential thoughts, selected and sequential thoughts, which I choose to work on and experience to emerge this peace, this love, this joy, this strength, which is already within me. And that's possible for every person to do. Now, I'm sure you've heard the saying that empty vessels make most noise. And if we use that idea in this context, the mind creates a lot of noise in the form of thoughts and desires and so on because of an inner spiritual emptiness. But as I begin to fill myself from the inside with meditation, with self-awareness, the more full I feel, the more secure I feel, the less noise the mind makes. The mind becomes calm, the mind becomes quiet. Another way of saying it, when the heart is full, the mind becomes quiet. And the heart here means that the inner feelings of the soul. In meditation, we are actually filling the heart, we are feeding the soul. Naturally, the behavior of the mind changes. Then in practical life, what happens is you maintain your emotional stability. So if you do something and somebody praises you and admires you and applauds you, you say, well, thanks very much. It's very nice of you. If somebody doesn't admire you, doesn't appreciate you, doesn't say thanks, it's also okay. Or you are given lots of attention or you are ignored, it doesn't matter. Because internally, you feel very emotionally secure. And so you pass through life observing the scenes and scenarios of life. You have chosen to own your peace and happiness because you know who you are. You're no longer fishing for respect or praise or attention from others outside. In fact, what happens when a person begins to grow and mature spiritually and emotionally is your emotional neediness reduces and your capacity to share and give increases. So in your relationships, you have more love to give, more patience to give. You're able to forgive. You're able to encourage. You're able to say, sorry, I made a mistake. You're able to say, you first, you have the first opportunity. Why? Because you feel very secure inside. When we feel insecure, the mind wants to grab and put inside to make me feel better. So we describe this as shifting from the outside in lifestyle to the inside out. You become a radiator of peace, of love, of joy. So you become much more useful and pleasant to your family, your friends, your work colleagues, and so on. Because essentially, you are becoming a very, very good friend of your own self. Okay, hoping this is making sense. And just got one or two more things to share. And so, what to choose, what to share? Well, here is again another little diagram which I find very, very useful. And some of you may remember, I think I shared this everywhere when I was in South Africa a couple of years ago. And it's about emotions, where they come from. So again, hoping you can see. So three things here. One is events. We're all surrounded by events. And events can be the things happening right in front of you in your house. Events can be the things happening in the news, in the world news. We're all surrounded by events. And events happen. There's not too much you can do about the events. You can do some things about the events in front of you. But what we do is we give meaning to those events. So some event can happen in front of 5 different people, and each person can give very different meaning to it from their own minds. For somebody, it's a terrible thing that happened. For somebody else, it's not so serious. For a third person, it's just hilarious, the funniest thing they've seen. For somebody else, it's mildly interesting. The event is one, but the meaning each one is given individually from their own minds. Excuse me. Now, why this is important is because the meaning you give to the event is generating your emotions. And that's the sequence. First, something happens, then very, very quickly, in a nanosecond, your mind gives meaning to it without even realizing it's so fast. And just as quickly, the emotion is generated from the mind. So 1, 2, 3, event, meaning, emotion, event, meaning, emotion. It happens very quickly. And because it's something that happens very fast, what we actually think is going on, which is an illusion, is that the event has created my emotions. That's what we think is happening. So we may say things like, I feel very angry because of what you did yesterday. I'm saying my emotion is because of that event which you are responsible for. Or I am very worried because of so and so. I am very upset because of such and such. And we believe that to be the reality. But in fact, it is an illusion. I'm not angry because of what you said. I'm angry because of the meaning I am giving to what you said. I'm not worried because of what's happening. I'm worried because of the meaning I'm giving to what's happening. I'm not upset because of X, Y, Z. I'm upset because of the meaning I'm giving to X, Y, Z. So this is both bad news and good news for us. So the bad news is that there is no one else, there is no other person who is responsible for your negative emotions. There is no one else to blame. So sorry about that. But the good news is exactly the same. And that is that the way I feel is entirely in my own hands if I choose to upgrade the meaning I'm giving to the events. If I choose to understand and give better or higher meaning to the events, then the way I feel is also in my own hands. In other words, let me stop trying to own the event. Let me stop trying to control the event, but let me instead let me give higher meaning to the event. Focus on upgrading the meaning to the event and just see how the emotions change. The emotions come in your own hands. Now, this of course raises the question, well, how do you do that? For this, we need to look at what is behind meaning, what really constitutes meaning, what is the meaning of meaning. And there are three main things which comprise meaning. I'll just briefly talk about one of them, and that is called our perspective. In any situation, the perspective from which you look at it influences how you're going to feel about it. And that's something we often forget. We say, I see this, I see that, or I hear this, I hear that, but I have a choice to see and to hear differently. I have a choice to raise my perspective. So once again, I'll just do this as a little summary. Ways to raise your perspective. So this here indicates the eye of your mind, the way your mind is viewing life. So here is your perspective. Here your perspective is high. Down here the perspective is low. So how do you see life? Well, let's say there's some situation in your life, something happened, maybe not the way you would prefer. When perspective is low, I may see that thing or situation as a problem. I label it as a problem, and therefore I may feel worried, I may lose sleep, I have digestive problems, because I'm seeing the situation as a problem. I put this word problem into my mind, and so my emotions are very heavy. If I raise my perspective, I say, okay, I choose to see this not as a problem, but as an obstacle. And so what's the difference between a problem and an obstacle? Well, the problem is, this is stopping me. I see this as a problem. An obstacle is, I ask myself, how can I get over this? When I see a situation or a person as a problem, I'm focusing upon the situation or the person. When I see the person or situation as an obstacle, I'm focusing on me. How can I get over this? How can I get around this? In other words, the focus is on developing myself rather than why is this person or this situation like this. One way to look at it is to see life as a classroom. If life is a classroom, if life is a school, then who are we? We are students. If life is a classroom and we are students, then who are the teachers? The teachers are situations you find difficult, but especially people you find difficult. And it's usually the case that everybody has one person who they find difficult in their life. One person who seems to be a world expert at pushing your buttons, as though they have been strategically parachuted into your life just to make your life difficult. So if I find a person difficult, I must change my vision of that person. And a little fun tip for you. Next time you think of that person, try and put right on the forehead of that person, my teacher. And ask yourself, what do I need to learn spiritually, emotionally, to deal with this person? Maybe I need to work on my self-respect. Maybe I need to work on being more forgiving. Maybe I need to work on being more kind. Maybe I need to work on being more stable. All the answers are in working on virtues. In the school of life, this is the thing to focus upon. This is the lesson, the curriculum, is continue to develop virtue into yourself. The more virtue you develop, the more easily you pass through the challenges which come next time in your life. So just to finish this off, as your perspective continues to rise, now the same situation I see as an opportunity to apply or practice my learning in life. Furthermore, next stage, now I see the same thing as a test. Now, generally, we don't like tests when we're at school, but tests are useful. You take your body for a test, which is a health checkup. You take your car for a test, and they check if everything's working okay, and if something's not working okay, they fix it. So too, for a person who is self-aware or spiritually aware, when situations come up, I see it as a test for my spiritual growth. I may think I'm very honest, but how do I know until some situation tests me? I may think I'm very humble. How do I know until there's a person or a situation which is going to test that humility? And so in this way, my view of a situation will be, it's just a test for me to be able to know myself. And in the final stage, as you see here, what I used to see as a problem, now I see as a gift. And a gift means I have gained something, I have learned something. It's helped me to move forward in life. It's helped me to mature, to evolve, and to develop. And so by shifting my perspective, I'm giving different meaning to the event. Because I've changed the meaning to the event, I have changed the way I feel. My emotions have changed. So, coming to the end of what I wanted to share. These are some things which have really been useful for me over the years. And I'm hoping they're useful to you as well, and you can apply them in your life. So thanks for listening, and I'm just going to hand to Belinda for any further instructions.
Thank you, Yogesh. So many insights, very, very practical, clear steps. I really appreciate it. And we do have time now for some questions and answers. If you'd like to put your questions up on the chat, and then I'll read them off to Yogesh, if that's okay, Yogesh.
Yeah.
There was a question earlier on from Sandra, and I have a feeling that some of this has been answered, but I will just read the question out. Sandra's asking, are we not created as social beings with a basic need for companionship, for our very survival as ancestors? We are biologically wired for companionship, just like food is a necessity for survival. How does one overcome or accept the loneliness of being single and the unfulfilled desire for a life mate and companionship, and the resultant depression? For me, the desire for acceptance and approval is not temporary, it is lifelong.
Yeah. Okay. I think I have partly that may have been answered in the sharing, but I'll add a bit more. One of the things that we understand in our study is that human beings were, let's say, highly spiritually and emotionally and mentally evolved in the past. We believe that humanity actually knew how to live. Our origins are very divine, very pure, very beautiful. And as I mentioned, I think that we've sort of been moving away from that over time. And yes, certainly in terms of relationships, we are designed to be in relationship, to live with each other. We are social beings. But what has happened, and I feel especially in the current times, is we enter into relationship from a place of need rather than from a place of fullness and the ability to share. Let me explain what I mean. Let's look at this word love, for example, which is a great need, whether it's for human beings or for nature or for animals. This word love can be an emotion, or this word love can be a feeling. In other words, love can be materialistic or love can be spiritual. And a phrase that somebody shared with me once in a talk I was doing, and he put his hand up and shared a very beautiful phrase. And he said, don't love, be love. Don't love, be love. And it was such a simple way of saying that what tends to happen in when we come into relationship with others is that we may not have built up a healthy and a strong self relationship. And often we use another person as a substitute for me having a good relationship with myself. In other words, we tend to use people as a kind of prop or a crutch just to make me feel better. But I believe that what's important is if I'm continuing to work on improving my relationship with myself, then when we come into relationship with another, there'll be the give and the take of real love, real good wishes. It won't be a dependency. Now, let's take one or two examples from nature. I love the example of the sun. And in some cultures, of course, the sun is worshipped. And one of the reasons is because it's always giving. Now, if one fine sunny day, you and I close the curtains, we block the sun, it doesn't bother the sun. The next day, the sun is still going to shine on us. It's not going to say, well, you folks ignored me yesterday, so today I'm not going to shine on you. But that's what happens with human beings when love is emotional. And when somebody does not respond the way I want them to, we are disappointed, we are hurt, we are upset, and we are unable to have good wishes, loving feelings towards that person. But when love is coming from a spiritual perspective, or love is coming as a feeling, then we're not caught in the emotional games of others. We're able to give somebody space. We're able to accept how somebody is, but still the love and the good wishes and the kindness will continue to come. And that's what I've seen in people who I consider spiritually very advanced and very, let's say, very evolved, is the capacity to love is very high. And if you do have two people whose spiritual development, spiritual maturity is very high, the name of the relationship between those two is they will be interdependent. There won't be a dependency on each other, but there'll be a sharing of who each one is. And interdependent means if one has to go away for something or some work, the other is still standing. That one has to come here, that one has to go away, still standing. There's a beautiful sharing going on. That's what we actually call as relationship. In Hindi, there is a word sambandh, which we translate as relationship. It's that which gives happiness. But when we are in a state of neediness and our love is only emotional, the word for that is called bandhan, which means like a bondage. in which there are dependencies, there are attachments, and that always leads to some kind of emotional upheavals. Just add one more thing. Also, there is this idea in the world that you are half a person and you have to go out there and find another half person, and then you'll be one person. But what happens, in fact, is you as a half person and somebody else is a half person. Generally, it's not an addition which takes place, but it's a multiplication. So half times a half makes a quarter. So one dependent individual who hasn't worked out their self relationship, and another person who also has not worked out a proper self relationship, they can prop each other up for a while. But unless they're also growing individually, at some point that dependency is going to collapse. So basically, the message is that yes, we are social beings, we are designed in a way to come together, to be in relationship. But at this point in time, especially, what must be happening additionally is I must also be growing in my relationship with myself, such that I have the best of me to offer to another.
Thank you very much, Yogesh. I'm sure that's going to be very helpful. There are not any further questions. Oh, there's a question coming up now. But I have two questions, Yogesh. Often you hear this expression that, but this is a reasonable expectation. And my question is, does a reasonable expectation exist?
I'm not sure I know the answer to that. I guess what I mean by when I was saying expectations lead to irritation, I think it's like, when there's an expectation on the inner emotional level. And I'm thinking again of the great, great teachers I've had the opportunity to observe over the years. Yeah, in some cases, some have had expectations of me, reasonable expectations. And in some cases, I've sometimes not been able to fulfill them. But what I've noticed is they haven't got upset or disappointed because they sort of know, they know where is the limit of the expectation. It's, if I may just show one example with my hands, and I'm hoping this is answering the question. It's like people need to be at a healthy spiritual distance from each other. In some places, like in the northern European countries, people tend to be like this, a bit cold, a bit distant. Where I live in the Mediterranean, people tend to be a bit more like this, and this is not good, but also this is not good. Because if you're emotionally stuck to someone, if one person has a bad day, goes a bit crazy, other one also goes crazy. But the right way is to be like this. So if one has a bad day or goes nuts one day, the other is still stable. It helps that one to stabilize. So I believe that when we are like this with others, and we may have expectations of certain behavior, if that expectation is not met, then this one will not get disturbed. And if, in fact, it will help the other one to stabilize as well. So yeah, I think we can have reasonable expectations, but I need to be in the right spiritual distance from the other in order to not be disturbed and to lose my peace of mind. That means really observing my self-respect in relationships.
That sounds like such a key, doesn't it? Maintain my self-respect. Thank you, Yogesh. A last question from my side. You were talking about the importance of changing our perspective so that we can upgrade the meaning that we give to events. And I was thinking that that also requires power to be able to change the perspective. Sometimes the emotions, they feel like such that you're bound, that you're locked into the emotion. How can we get the power to actually make that shift in perspective? What are the ingredients that will empower us for that?
Yeah, yeah, it's a great point, and I think it's what I was mentioning as the other partner of changing your vision or perspective. But the partner of that is developing inner strength and looking after the mind better. And for me, that means building this regular meditation practice into your lifestyle. And as many of you would know, that what we suggest is first thing in the morning when you wake up, before you engage with life, before you engage with the world or your responsibilities, first, visit the inner self. First, charge the battery of your soul. And if you do that every morning, if you have a meditation first thing in the morning, it'll give you the strength to be able to keep your mind stable through the day. And with that strength, you'll be able to manage your emotions, especially when you're challenged at work or at home. So one thing is start the day every day with meditation. Secondly, as you go through the day, we do this practice which we call as traffic control for the mind, where you try and stop for 3 minutes or so, let's say a couple of times in the day, just disengage from the world of doing, go to the being part, experience that inner peace, recharge your inner battery a couple of times a day. It's going to give you the strength to be able to shift your perspective and also to keep your emotions under control. And one last thing is how to finish the day. I share a wonderful idea I was given when I was a kid. I really found it useful. And it's like this, that how would you close a computer at the end of the day? You wouldn't just yank the plug out of the wall. But there's a process. You have to sign out, you have to log off, you have to switch off. There are steps to take. And it's the same also with the mind. To put the mind to sleep properly, I have to empty the mind of the thoughts of the day. And one way to do that is consider the whole of life to be a theater performance. And to think that whatever happened today, whether it was something pleasant, not so pleasant, or I did something amazing, or I did something very silly, whatever happened, today the curtain is closed. Today's drama is over. Multiply everything by 0. Empty the mind of the thoughts of the day. Let the mind be light, and then go to sleep. So I find these simple things, how to start the day, how to manage the mind through the day, and how to end the day, they help to keep the inner strength high. When the inner strength is high, then you're able to get out of those emotional whirlpools and shift your perspective in the practical life situations.
Very nice. Thank you for that. It feels like a good time to do some more meditation, but there's just one more question here on the chat before I ask you to do a final meditation. Marina says, but if one loves to stay in a roller coaster mode, but there's always a price to pay, what to do in that case?
I know, Marina. Maybe I'll talk to her later about this. But just to answer the question, if one loves to stay in the roller coaster mode, but then there is a price to pay. So presuming one is talking about the self rather than if somebody else is in the roller coaster mode. Well, it's like one has to reach the point where I feel internally I no longer want this. And it's like the formula for change. I have to reach the point where I'm ready to change and ready to let go of wanting to be on that roller coaster, because there's always a price to pay. So just to summarize it, there is a formula for change. Three things need to be there in order for me to decide I want to get off that roller coaster and I don't want to pay the price anymore. So one is I need to be sufficiently dissatisfied with the way things are. So I need to be sufficiently fed up with being in that mode. I have to reach that point where I say, that's enough, I don't want to do this anymore. Secondly, second part of the first one is I also need to have a desire for the future state, how I will be without living on the roller coaster. How much do I actually want to get there? How strong is that pure desire? Second thing we require is clarity of the steps involved. How do I actually get off the roller coaster? Or with any change process, sometimes people use the term implementation paralysis. I know all the things to do, but where is the button which I press to start the process? So implementation paralysis, waiting for clarity to come. So if I have clarity of the steps involved in the change process, that's also necessary in order to actually do the thing, do the change. Third thing we require is acceptance of a certain amount of disruption which is going to be involved in making the change. Any kind of major change in anything is going to cause some, at least temporary disruption. And most people don't want that. They can't accept it. They say, I want to change, but I don't want to rock the boat too much. So, they choose not to. In anything you do, if you want to be a top sports person or an accomplished musician or anything you do, it's going to require commitment. It's going to require giving up for some time your regular luxuries, the way you use your time, the places you go to. Most people will say it's too much to give up, so I choose not to. But if a person is ready to accept the temporary disruption to their patterns and their routines, then they're able to make that change in their life. And also to be able to able to deal with the cost of change. Cost means what you have to give up forever. So if I'm in a situation where I want something to change in my life, but I'm not doing it, then have a look at these three factors to see what's missing and work on what's missing if I really want to make that change. Okay.
Thank you. What you described also reminds me of breaking addictions. And I suppose an emotional addiction is also something that we have. Yogesh, thank you so much. Would you guide us now in a closing meditation?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So once again, I would suggest if you're able to have your back straight and your feet on the floor, um, and maybe if you're interested to experiment, if you wish to experiment, here is something you could do. Some may like to try to have their eyes open. And open-eyed meditation is a different experience to closed eyes. So if you wish to experiment with open eyes, find something to focus on. Or sometimes we suggest to look at the forehead of the person in front of you. And in this case, it happens to be me. So you can just look at the forehead, my forehead here. And this is, of course, the region where the soul resides, the soul energy. And we'll just see how this goes. So I'll just guide you through a very simple meditation. So once again, I choose to take some time just to be with myself. And I start with the question, who am I? Behind the roles I play every day, who am I? Behind the labels I carry, who am I? Behind the masks I wear, who am I? I know there is more to me than these roles, these labels, these masks. And when I look in the mirror, I see the reflection of my face, my body, but I know there is more to me than simply this. And so I bring my awareness up towards my face and up to the center of the forehead. And here I picture a beautiful star of peaceful light. Just visualize this wonderful star of peaceful light in the center of your forehead. From this star, waves of peaceful energy are radiating in all four directions. This beautiful star of peaceful light in the center of the forehead. This is me. This is I, the eternal soul. I, the soul, I am light. I am eternal. And deep within me, there is a reservoir of inner peace. And that peace has always been inside me. And now I choose to emerge this peace once again. And all I have to do is just to be aware. To be aware, I am peace. I am light. I am eternal. I am free. Just be with this feeling of peace and freedom for a moment. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a beautiful way to end the afternoon. Actually, we're not quite at the end. I'm going to hand over to Sharda. I just wanted to check, Yogesh. Will you stay with us for our music presentation now, or do you need to leave?
I can stay for a little while. I'd be happy to hear.
Right, so I'm going to invite Sharda to join us now. I hand over to you, Sharda. Thank you so much, Yogesh.
Thank you very much, Belinda, and thank you, Brother Yogesh, again for a very inspiring talk this afternoon. I feel like you covered the essence of Raj Yoga in your talk. And it's my pleasure to introduce our musical duo that is going to follow now, and they are called Desert Rose. Desert Rose are very much a part of the Brahmakumaris family. Lynn founded Desert Rose in 2000, and since 2006, she has partnered with Yusuf to form Desert Rose Music. To date, they have produced 19 original sacred musical albums for the sole purpose of healing, meditation, and for raising consciousness. So their performance is going to be very much a complement to the spiritual sustenance that we have experienced through this afternoon. They met the Brahmakumaris in 2013 in Warsaw at the COP19 conference, and they also performed privately for the BK Polish family with Sister Jayanti, and they took drishti from Sister Jayanti as well. They participated as part of the BK COP teams in 2014 in Peru, in 2015 in Paris, and in 2016 in Morocco. Desert Rose has also worked alongside the BK COP team and with Sister Jayanti, Sister Valerian, Sister Sonia, and Brother Golo. They follow the BK teachings and they incorporate the power of Raj Yoga in their work and also introduce Baba through the sacred sound and music to diverse audiences, irrespective of culture, religion, and authenticity. The core purpose of the music of Desert Rose is to support audiences to access their inner world and to explore the soul qualities and higher dimensions of our reality. So, as a wonderful compliment to Brother Yogesh's very uplifting talk, I'm so pleased that we are now going to be able to listen to Desert Rose. Thank you so much, Lynn and Yusuf. Over to you.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Greetings from South Africa to all our fellow brothers and sisters throughout the world. And thank you, Yogesh Bhai, for sharing part of your journey and the wisdom that you've acquired as a yogi for more than 30 years. So thank you for that. We are all feeling, I think, elevated. So we want to keep this elevation going with some sacred music, universal sacred music. And we're going to start with a cornerstone of all spiritual teachings, and that is to stay connected with the divine supreme being. And the name of the song and sacred chant is called Manmana Baba. Yeah. open my eyes to see the one, for my heart to feel the love of one, to hear the voice of truth. There is only one, only the love of one, unlimited and eternal is the love of one. There is only one, only the love of one. So don't forget to be a part of the dance of love. There's only love. My only thought is to be in this love, to open my heart to feel the love, for my eyes to see the love of one, to hear the voice of truth. There is only one, only the love of one, unlimited and eternal is the love of one. There is only one, only the love of one. So don't forget to be a part of the dance of love. So don't forget to be a part of the dance of love. The time is here to see the way I see you, a shining light, immortal and eternal. I'm right here by your side, whispering the truth of who you really are. The time has come to shed your earthly garments masters of time and space. There's nothing left to fear. Just take my hand and I will lead you back home. Spread your angel wings and fly. The gravity of love will take you higher. This I promise you, my child. The time has come. We're all going home. Going home. We're all going home. We're all going home. Spread your angel wings and fly. The gravity of love will take you higher. This I promise you, my child. The time has come. We're all going home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Pratibha and Shirley Ben, for inviting us to share with you this occasion today. So we say Om Shanti, and we're going to leave you with one more little piece of where you can find our music. Om Shanti.